Don't you find
your lunch menus? Here is
if you read like I read before this Mystery Theater, then sometimes I just don't.
It is Tuesday,
work very
November
well.
13th. Your Meals
lips,
on Wheels menu
the
for
tongue just
today
doesn't work.
is
There's a
open
limit
hot
to how
dog
much how
with
long
chili
you can read.
topping,
She said,
seasoned potato wedges,
I find my health self-taste stop and then
an orange,
I
and 1% milk.
I the food back
Just a
up.
reminder, you can hear the
Yeah,
we
it's
can't
like,
do here.
I know, that's what,
And now another public service announcement,
And you'll find
Jane Nielsen.
with this one, especially.
I like that one, I want that.
Greetings from Radio Ebook Service.
No.
This is Jane
You don't
Nielsen.
like
I like it all right.
Did
You
you
good
know
for Friday?
that RTBS
Oh,
has
sure.
no option for you to listen
Before
to
I
the
say, oh,
RTV
sure.
network?
Oh, okay.
We have
Oh,
two
just a
types of
moment.
radio that uses the internet
Do I want
or
to?
Wi-Fi.
Yes, but let's
And
see
one
what's on
picks
here.
up
stole your
free
coat.
over the air.
Yeah.
And
Why did you want it?
No,
Were you
but I
told or
just-
did you want?
No, she just wanted to sit
the
there.
majority of
Yeah,
our radios.
okay, yeah.
If you are experiencing a great
The
deal of
Lincoln-
static on your
Well,
FM radio from
I think for your
RTBS,
first shot, you
please
should be
call the
here
office
at,
and we will get you one of the new radios.
like right around 9:30.
Our number
Okay.
at
We
the
should be going there at
office
10 and you have to look at the
Yeah.
paper a little bit so you
Yeah,
decide
and
what
it's
you
gonna
need.
take, you know, for your first time,
it's
gonna take you probably a little longer. I mean, these guys can walk in at, well, they both
No,
get
we
here
couldn't.
early. Yep.
Tuesday's paper is so.
Listen
She can't
read on Friday.
I know, but Tuesdays it's like a pamphlet,
Yeah,
and so we have to kind of coordinate what we're gonna do because there's.
which used to be
and I think you have to anyway, because you don't want to be reading the same story from different papers.
Right, she's gonna be reading with Ralph.
Oh, he'll be-
So, yeah, so you'll have,
Ralph's
he's,
obviously, he's-
that'll be a good, he'll be a good guide for you. Great, great, great. But
I'll
you're,
be
you're
okay
okay
at
tonight,
nine.
yeah,
And
okay,
so what time does it wrap up?
And follow
It
the prompts
wraps
to
up at
listen
noon.
live.
okay.
The third way you can listen to RTBS.
So back that 1 o'clock back, just like another 15 minutes.
Ralph, doesn't Ralph
From your
read the
landline or
journal?
your cell phone, dial 319-527-3993.
Mike has been
And you will
reading
hear Radio
the,
Talkie Book Network.
uh,
Most phone plans
monitor.
nowadays have a free long distance package.
I think Ralph has read both.
Oh, yeah.
I think what he read was,
Doesn't he record the Wall Street Journal or read
No,
it
no.
on the
He
weekend?
reads it.
Not-
He
I'm
reads
sorry,
it.
the Lincoln Journal
Oh,
Stars,
Lincoln
what I
Journal
meant,
Stars.
not the.
No,
not
no,
the-
I know what you meant.
When I used
I
to,
know what you
I
meant.
started with Ralph, and I always read the World Herald,
Please
that's
call
why he
if
always
you
read.
need more information. on
He
any of
did,
these
and
options.
then-
I suppose it
We'd
depends.
love to have you
Then Rick,
visit
I didn't say that,
and
Rick
give me a
Minor
good, clear
had
signal for
surgery
Radio Talkie Book.
on his arm. His arm was hurting him for a very long time, and to the extent that reading the physical, it was easier for him to manipulate through that. So he's been doing that, but on Friday.
On providing government-sponsored managed care services through Medicaid
Okay, so I
and
don't know if you want to
Medicare
stay any
prescription drug
longer.
plans for families, children, and seniors in Nebraska. For more about WellCare, call today at 1-888-255-2605 or visit www.wellcare.com/Nebraska.
Thank you very much, Michael. Let's return now for the second hour of the line reading the Lincoln Journal Star, Omaha World Herald. Back over to Studio A we go for our regular stars. Here comes Deb Beatty and Don Van. Go ahead, folks.
Yes, we are back. Thanks, Ryan. And we are going to, of course, take on editorials, which means we begin with the letters to the editor. There are two in today's Journal Star. The first is from Charlie Friedman from Lincoln. And Charlie writes, I am saddened by violence against our leaders and citizens. What distinguishes this country is our Constitution. It is made to unify, not divide. It is a living document that celebrates humanity's better angels, not our worst fears. We are a country that celebrates our differences. Lincoln is a resettlement city, embracing people from around the world who want to work hard for a better life. Our eclectic population makes Lincoln vibrant and strong. My family came to the Midwest 150 years ago looking for a better life. They spoke Polish, Russian, and Yiddish. We struggled to speak the common tongue and fit into American culture. I love burgers, but I still dig a good borscht. My family takes seriously the biblical verse, "You were once strangers in the land of Egypt." Never forget how it feels to be a stranger, hungry, oppressed, with nowhere to go, solely because of your otherness. What saddens me most about the murders of my Jewish brothers and sisters is they were targeted not only for their religious identity, but because they gave shelter and food to people in need. In America, our leaders, despite political differences, set a moral compass. The current one, instead of uniting us through our shared values, pits us against each other to the point of desecrating life. When I was living in New York City after 9/11, people asked me if I was scared of terrorists, anybody of Middle Eastern descent. My response was, "Are you kidding me? That's my neighbor. We buy the same beer. We share jokes. Our children are friends." New Yorkers understand diversity does not lead to fragmentation, but is the glue that creates a strong community. I pray in these difficult times that God saves America, but I mostly pray for Americans to save America. If we can't, nobody else will. This next letter, the second letter, is from Margaret A. French, Lincoln. The Republicans lost the House but gained seats in the Senate. Democrats have the House but not the Senate. When I woke up the morning after the election, I said to my husband, "Isn't it amazing how different the reactions were from the Republicans after they lost?" Nothing was burned, no one cried, no one said they wanted to blow up the White House. Just people saying they were disappointed, and that was it. Democrats, this is how civilized Americans handle defeat. God bless our country, and I am very proud of our President, Donald J. Trump. And that's Margaret A. French from Lincoln.
Well, we'll turn now to the letters in the Public Pulse in the Omaha World Herald. First one is from William Dahl of Omaha. He writes, "It is this time of the year with the elections and Veterans Day that makes me think about the United States. I would like to say thank you to all the political candidates who volunteered to serve our country. I would like to say thank you to all our veterans. Lastly, I would like to thank William Gallup for his short but gripping story of an old veteran in Sunday's World Herald." And he is referring to on Veterans Day, an old veteran reflects on his military service in the Midlands Voices. That again was William Dahl of Omaha. From Don Kramer of Omaha, "My heartfelt thanks to a wonderful breakfast on Veterans Day at the Hy-Vee store on 144th Street and Stony Brook Drive. The staff was great as always and the food delicious again. A thank you from a grateful vet." From Don Kramer. From Nancy Dickinson of Omaha, "I took Friday off, intending to go to Des Moines with my friend. She lives 6 minutes away, about 1.5 miles. It took her 3 hours to get to my house, going a half a mile on Pacific Street, a half mile on 168th Street, and a half mile, so we canceled our trip. I get that the mayor's office doesn't have a crystal ball, but maybe it could have used Bellevue's. What really irritates is city officials insisting they made the right call instead of taking accountability and apologizing to the citizens who were grossly inconvenienced. Looking at a naked emperor and saying how wonderful his new clothes are may work for some in Washington, but it doesn't fly in Nebraska." That's Nancy Dickinson of Omaha. From Robert Benson of Gretna, "I was glad to read that Mayor Gene Stothert of Omaha and Austin Rouser, Omaha Street Maintenance Engineer, have several sources of winter weather information. However, after the debacle that was the Friday morning rush hour, I would recommend adding one more source of winter weather information to the Mayor and Public Works Department, a window." Robert Benson of Gretna. Bruce Forbes of Omaha, "No wall will prevent those wanting to cross our southern borders from entering our country illegally. Overcoming obstacles has always been mankind's strength. Creativity and determination will overcome the wall. What about the northern borders? Will we build a northern wall too? Why not hire more border patrols and develop better surveillance and technologies to protect our borders? Imagine this, the wall is built, and remote-controlled manned drones are used to transport illegal immigrants over the wall." Bruce Forbes of Omaha. From Sandy Weiser, I guess Weiser of Harlan, Iowa, So Matthew Hansen doesn't understand how any Iowan could be dull enough to vote for Steve King. He just doesn't get it, along with most of the left. I voted for King and would again. I also voted for Donald Trump and will again. Why? It's pretty simple. It's not the person, it's the policies. I want someone who believes the Constitution is more than just a piece of paper, someone who values religious liberty and upholds the sanctity of life. Anyone who has read the Democrats' platforms knows that they value none of those. In Hansen's article, he stated he, talking about J.D. Scholten, tried to shy away from national politics wherever possible. A good idea, since his party's politics and Northwest Iowans don't always match. So Scholten was trying to do what? Hide from people what he really believes? The policies he would stand behind if he were elected? So who were actually the dumb ones? I say those who were fooled into voting for someone without actually knowing where he stands. Thank goodness there were enough voters who saw through that farce. Sandy Weiser of Harlan. From Andrew L. Sullivan of Omaha. Voters in Douglas and Lancaster counties apparently did not receive enough information about the Medicaid expansion issue. Too many probably assumed Medicaid expansion was about accepting federal tax money. Federal funding will taper Nebraska taxpayers to assume increasing costs of the program. Nebraska's laws passed by petition can be changed only by 2/3 supermajority of state senators. So no matter how bad Nebraska's Medicaid problems become, the least likely option is reform. Taxes will go up, programs will be cut, or both. If more voters in Douglas and Lancaster counties had known such facts, I am certain the Medicaid expansion measure would have been defeated. Andrew L. Sullivan of Omaha. From Bev Cheney of Omaha. After 5 years of Republican obstruction, Nebraskans have finally passed a referendum to expand Medicaid. This will be a great relief for many low-income students working part-time and seasonally, parents supporting children on less than $15 an hour, caregivers keeping family members out of nursing home and foster care, eligible for early Medicare due to the 18-month wait and strict definition of permanent total disability. Contrary to those insulting TV ads against Medicaid expansion, Nebraska's 90,000 uninsured low-income citizens are not all slackers. Leaving them uninsured, risking their health and medical bankruptcy was bad public policy. There are better ways to contain healthcare spending. That was Bev Cheney of Omaha. And finally, from Sean Wrench of Omaha, I want to thank Gary Clark Jr. for doing his best to melt the election off of our faces at the Orpheum Theater on Wednesday night. We hope we won't have to wait for the next election cycle before Clark comes back to Omaha.
Thanks, Deb. Well, there's just a couple of quotes that you may find of some interest found in today's editorial column from the Lincoln Journal-Star. The first is from Lincoln Mayor Chris Beitler. The voters approved a retroactive term limits ballot measure that will bar him from seeking a fourth term in 2019, which I believe he said prior to the vote he wasn't going to run anyway. Well, Mayor Beitler said, I want to thank the people of Lincoln for giving me 12 years, a privilege they granted no other. It has been a time of historic growth and prosperity because all sectors of the community have worked together to build a better city. And the second is from attorney Carlos Monzon on a Homeland Security raid at Mexican restaurants in Lincoln owned by his client. This is a broken immigration system, and the government, instead of fixing the system and working with others, they're destroying pillars of the community like Mr. Abram Morales. Deb?
Well, thanks. Here is an editorial in the World Herald, of course. A recent report from Iowa State University offers sobering findings that show why our country needs to resolve its tariff wars with China and other nations. The university researchers found that eruptions and loss of market share will cost the Iowa economy between $1 billion and $2 billion. Iowa State's Center for Agriculture and Rural Development used several analytical models and calculated the average loss for Iowa's soybean industry at $545 million, for corn $333 million, and hogs $776 million. A projected fall in ethanol prices would cost the state's ethanol producers about $105 million. Iowa is the country's number 1 ethanol producer, with Nebraska second. The Iowa State analysis cites additional costs: lost labor income, $245 million to $484 million, depending on how the Trump administration's federal relief payments are handled, and lost tax revenue, $75 to $110 million. Those figures are the short-term cost. The long-term cost involves the possible loss of overseas markets, says John Crespi, an economics professor and interim director of the Iowa State Rural Development Center. For farmers, Crespi says, the obvious question is where and how much of your product will you sell this year and next year, and for what price? But the harder question is what happens in 2, 3, or 10 years if the trade wars continue. You could find that the U.S. loses so much market share that a decade from now, even if you get rid of the tariffs, the U.S. may be a smaller player. The Iowa State study points to 2 historical examples of how U.S. producers lost market share during past trade disruptions. European farmers stepped in and gained market share in the Soviet Union during a U.S. grain embargo in the 1980s. And in 2009, Brazilian and European poultry producers increased their market share in China in the wake of the U.S.-China trade dispute. History has shown that the world's farmers don't just sit back and wait for countries to settle their differences. They ring the doorbell and offer their products, Crespi said. The president of the Brazilian Grain Growers Association recently met with Chinese traders, and the Chinese embassy in Brazil said discussing a Brazil-China futures contract has merit. Despite the recent U.S. trade agreement with Canada and Mexico, the Trump administration continues to impose steel and aluminum tariffs on the flimsy rationale of national security, and tariff conflicts with China and the European Union are unresolved. Crespi is right when he says America's farmers are always on the front lines of trade wars. The Iowa State analysis shows the crucial need for our country to negotiate reasonable compromises that end the market disruptions and restore general stability to our foreign transactions.
Thanks, Deb. Well, it's 19 minutes after the hour. Time to move on to today's living and entertainment sections. Well, psychotherapist Dr. Barton Goldsmith, his column is entitled A Warrior's Inspiring Story. I was truly inspired by the story of retired Marine Sergeant Joshua A. Elliott, the spokesperson for Disabled Sports Eastern Sierra. I met when he spoke at a local charity event for the organization. Their goal is to build the National Wounded Warrior Center, which will empower wounded, ill, and injured servicemen and women to transition into fulfilling lives. Mission. Elliott was one of the brave souls who walked in front of their patrol teams with a metal detector looking for explosive devices, that's IEDs. It is a very dangerous job, and the odds of getting blown up are pretty high. His band of brothers in Afghanistan used all their resources, along with some gallows humor, to cope with the danger. Call it bad luck or just a matter of time, but Elliott did step on an IED, which was fortunately on the roof of a building and blew him down rather than up. This, along with the heroic actions of his team, applying battlefield tourniquets where his legs once were, saved his life. Now he had to get his head and heart into the right place to help himself heal. He first had to tackle the physical challenges, and the mental challenges were equally difficult. He got his strength from the love of his family and others in his life. It is really what pushed him through his life-altering change. He also had another arrow in his quiver. Even on bad days, he remembered some of his moments while snowboarding, and he dreamed of getting back on top of a mountain. That's a pretty big dream when you no longer have the legs you once skied on. Through Wounded Warriors, Elliott found Disabled Sports Eastern Sierra in Mammoth Lakes, California. The folks at Disabled Sports evaluated, trained, and built a special ski for this American hero, and Elliott took to it immediately. As he described it, they strapped me into this contraption that had a ski on it, and off I went. After practice, Elliott decided to try out for the U.S. Paralympic team. He did further training in Aspen, Colorado, made the team. It was in the alpine skiing event at the Winter Games in South Korea, where he came in 6th. Talk about manifesting your dreams. I'm waiting to see him medal in his next try. Getting back into life after you have been gravely injured takes a kind of bravery that comes only with the support of those around you. Elliot's family and friends, the doctors and nurses, his trainers, coaches, teammates, and of course, his brothers from his unit all have contributed to his recovery and his success, as have these amazing organizations. For Elliot, it isn't all about winning. He hopes to inspire those who will have to endure what he has and worse. As the spokesperson for disabled sports, he gets to touch many lives, motivate others, and hold this door for more of our wounded veterans. If your life or the life of someone you love has been altered by war, and you think that maybe there is a chance that an organization like this could help, I urge you to find out more.
Thanks,
Yep.
Don. Here's an interesting article regarding music and health from the Washington Post. You may have heard that Staying Alive by the Bee Gees has the perfect beat for doing CPR, but it's not the only song that can provide a soundtrack to chest compressions in an emergency. If you know Just Dance by Lady Gaga, Rock This Town by Stray Cats, or Beyonce, you already know a song that could help you save a life. The Songs to Do CPR To playlist on Spotify collects those songs and more. The playlist, developed by New York Presbyterian Hospital, collects songs that have a tempo between 100 and 120 beats per minute, the perfect pace for life-saving chest compressions in case you have to perform CPR. It's part of the hospital's hands-only CPR initiative, which seeks to raise awareness that you could save a life using just your hands. Contrary to popular belief, CPR can be performed without using mouth-to-mouth breathing. If you see someone collapse and stop breathing, you can call for help. Then start compressing the person's chest at a rate of 2 compressions per second, about the beat of, say, Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Those chest compressions could be the difference between life and death. According to the American Heart Association, fewer than half of people who experience cardiac arrest get help from a bystander before emergency professionals arrive. Bystander CPR can help increase the chances of survival, helping pump oxygenated blood through the patient's veins and keeping the brain and body alive. The playlist isn't meant to be played while you do the compressions, just to help you find a song to sing to yourself as you time each press of the hands. Brushing up on what to do in an emergency now, even if it's just grooving to Marvin Gaye's What's Going On or Gnarls Barkley's Crazy, might help you and someone else the next time you face an emergency. Instead of standing by or hesitating because you're unsure, just hum a song like the Backstreet Boys' Quit Playing Games with My Heart and start saving a life.
Thanks, Deb. Well, here's an article authored by Cindy Lang Kubik from the Journal Star. It's coming. The bus is coming. I think I see the bus. The bus is almost here. Come on, bus. It's Monday morning as Stephanie Flodman is reassuring her antsy 8-year-old, a boy in a puffy coat and a shiny backpack, who is waiting for the school bus to come and take him to Maxey Elementary School and his 2nd grade classroom. The bus is late, and AC is antsy and anxious. But today, on a snow-spitting November morning, he isn't cold. Alexander Carter, AC for short, is autistic. He lives in Southeast Lincoln with his mom and his big brother Joe and his grandma Pat. Their house is set back a long way from the street. Before last week, AC had a bench where he sat, sometimes impatiently, waiting for the bus. It can get pretty cold on the bench, even with the blanket, even with his mom or grandma keeping him warm. But Monday, the bench was gone. In its place was a small bus made of plywood with 2 seats and a steering wheel, a shelter for AC. Pat Dugan built it for the little boy. He found an old ice fishing hut in Denver last spring and drove to pick it up last month. When he told the seller what he was going to do with it, the man wouldn't take his money. He said, "Put it in the collection plate." He built a frame and filled in the fishing holes. He went to a salvage yard and found a pair of jump seats in the back of an old Mazda. He pulled a steering wheel too and set it to work, turning the inside of that fishing hut into a cozy waiting room. Pat and Michaela Dugan lived next door to the Flodmans on this secluded circle near 84th Street and Pioneers Boulevard. They were here when the family arrived next door 5 years ago. AC was so shy then, Pat Dugan says. But one day he was out mowing and saw the boy on his big wheel. Pat tooled over on his John Deere, and the pair raced up and down the long driveway. "Now we're just like a couple of buddies," Pat says. "We're just good pals." Pat grew up on a farm near Greeley, Nebraska. He'd been a teacher and principal in Colorado before he got into the insurance business on the other side of the border. He's 58 now and retired. But when he and Michaela moved to Lincoln to be closer to their aging parents, he took a job directing a community learning center. He really has a soft spot in his heart for old people and little kids, Michaela says. When Pat got that ice fishing hut home, he got to work. He added plywood and bright yellow paint to the outside. He painted black tires and white headlights. He cut out a window and angled a little bus for the little boy so he could watch for the big bus all winter long. He saw a need and he just filled it, Grandma Pat says. "I had no idea he was doing it. It was a total shock to me." The bus had been in the yard for a week. That first night, Stephanie sent Pat a picture. AC was in there with his favorite blanket and some toys. Pat says it looked like he was moving out there. Pat likes being busy. He built a treehouse for Joe. He fixed the Flodman's chicken coop. He put that bench at the end of the driveway for AC. From day one, he's been kind of amazing, Stephanie says. When he showed her the wooden school bus, he told her he could turn it into a fire truck too, or a race car, whatever AC wanted. Super thoughtful, Stephanie says. For a long time, AC wasn't very verbal, but now he and Pat jabber away. He's really blossomed, Michaela says. He talks and Pat gets really into it whether he understands him or not. Monday morning, AC is talking. He's wondering where the bus could be. He's worried he'll miss school. He thinks his mom should get the car and drive him to Maxie. "Let's go, Mommy," he says. "Let's go." "The bus is close," his mom says. AC peers out the window. He wrote his name on the plywood next to his seat. He wrote his brother's name too. Then he crossed it out. This is his bus. And that other bus? That bus is finally here, out where it's cold, waiting. Deb?
Thanks. Health-related story for our living time today. For some time, the best advice for treating kids with sports-related concussions has called for rest, both mental and physical. But the latest update from the American Academy of Pediatrics calls for eliminating physical and mental exercise in the days following such brain injuries. Kids really seem to do better if they take relative rest for a few days, then get back to school and start increasing physical activity without contact, said Dr. Cody Moffitt, director of the Pediatric Sports Medicine Program at Children's Hospital and Medical Center in Omaha. He is one of 3 lead authors of the update published Monday. It's the first update from the Academy in 8 years. Previously, Moffitt said some doctors and parents were recommending cocooning, keeping the injured child or teen in a dark room with no sound, no stimulation, no cell phone. Young people who already are feeling lousy can quickly become anxious or depressed in such circumstances. Being able to reach out to friends can help with recovery. There's a big difference between sending a text and doing algebra, he said. Students who've suffered a concussion benefit from adjustments to their academic workload, but prolonged school absence is discouraged. A return to physical activity might involve brisk walking, the authors wrote, but electronics do need to be kept in check. Kids shouldn't be thinking about video games until they're completely back in school. If you can't go to school, you shouldn't be playing Fortnite, Moffat said, referring to the popular video game. Moffat said the update comes amid a rapid expansion of what researchers know about concussions. What this does is try to summarize the current knowledge, fully explain a different place 5 years, he said. An estimated 1.1 million, 9 million American children and teens are treated for a recreational or sports-related concussion every year, according to the report. But the authors indicate that such injuries remain underreported, even as awareness has grown among doctors, parents, coaches, and youths themselves. All 50 states, as well as the District of Columbia, now have laws requiring that kids who are suspected of having a concussion be removed from play and cleared by a medical provider before returning. Many, like Nebraska, also require schools to adopt return-to-learn plans to accommodate children with brain injuries as they return to schoolwork. Many sports governing bodies and athletic associations also have required more training for coaches, players, and parents, as well as rule changes on contact and practice, all risks and making sports safer. What else we learned in the report? Recent research indicates the middle school tackle football has the concussion rate occurring in between 2.6 and 2.9 of every 1,000 games or practices. But most research has focused on treatment of high school athletes. And a number of factors are probably involved in the higher concussion rate for middle school football players age and maturity. As young people go through adolescence, physical changes occur in the brain that help protect it from injuries. Middle schoolers are still learning tackling technique. They also lack the same neck strength as older adults. Most adults with a concussion will get better within a week or two, Moffat said. With kids and teens, recovery time usually is closer to 4 weeks. We think the reason for that is the physical maturation of the brain during adolescence, he said. Football, lacrosse, ice hockey, and wrestling carry the biggest concussion risk for boys. For girls, the list starts with soccer, which is second to tackle football overall, followed by lacrosse, field hockey, and basketball. What we still don't know. While there's still no way to prevent all concussions in sports, Moffat said, rule changes have helped. Studies are now underway nationally to determine which changes are going to be the most effective. A blood test or scan that would pinpoint when a person is concussed and when that person has recovered would be helpful, but has proved elusive. A concussed brain looks normal in imaging. A CT scan is needed if a doctor suspects bleeding in or around the brain, Moffat said, but most have gotten away from the routine CT scans for concussions when bleeding isn't suspected. The authors also note that the long-term effects of a single concussion have not been determined, but in other research, repeated concussions have been linked with the debilitating brain disease found in the autopsies of some retired football players.
Thanks, Deb. Well, you might be a little worried out there, but no, we are not going to forget Amy Dickinson today. Let's go ahead and find out what kind of advice she has for us today. First question, dear Amy, responding to questions regarding whether women should confront long ago unwanted sexual experiences. When I was a teenager, I'm female, I experienced my share of illicit kisses, inappropriate gestures from men, and sexual innuendos. Today's age makes women think they should consider activities once again to light. To what purpose? My own thoughts are that words, caresses, and even kisses, if not of a violent nature, are not that big of a deal. Humans are animals biologically, and sex is a powerful drive. Teenagers ooze hormones. Our animal natures drive us to kissing, touching, and talking about forbidden stuff. Only if something seriously coercive occurred in the past that involved injury or threat of terror would I waste time trying to rectify it now. As the old saying goes, you live and you learn. Signed, Older and Wiser. Dear Older, If your youthful sexual experiences, whether illicit or inappropriate, didn't bother you then and don't bother you now, then lucky you. Go forth and prosper. However, you may be conflating hormonal teen activity, which would be consensual, with other illicit activity, forbidden or illegal. You shouldn't feel pressured to confront or report something that happened many years ago, unless, of course, you suspect the person who was sexual with you would have gone on to actually victimize someone else, someone who lacked your resiliency or who didn't consent. Then you would be morally obligated to confront and report it. Women are coming forward now because we are basically mad as hell and not going to take it anymore. Back in the day, many parents, teachers, clergy, etc., reflected the overall prevailing culture and were so successful at silencing girls that girls pretty much silenced themselves. I believe that many women today are inspired by their own experiences as parents to try to ensure that their children experience their own sexual free of force or coercion. This includes the freedom to experiment and to make mistakes and the responsibility to face the natural consequences stemming from their own actions. For any person, finding and using your voice is the gateway not only to personal power and self-esteem, but also to compassion toward others. And so if you choose not to report, you shouldn't judge those who do. Dear Amy, I went to a party that a co-worker was throwing. I got really drunk and made out with her ex, not knowing that he was her ex. Before making out with him, I asked a girlfriend who was there if this guy was good people, and she said yes. Unfortunately, the next day, I found out that he was my coworker's ex. I sent my coworker a message right away apologizing. She replied that it was a wild night and not to worry. I thought we were good, but I just heard that she is still mad at me. Everyone at work knows about it. What should I do? Signed, Worried. Dear Worried, as the holiday party season approaches, let your question ring a cautionary note. The impact of behaviors will outlast even the meanest hangover. I love your instinct to ask your friend if this guy was good people before making out with him, although asking this question while drunk skews the results of the survey. At this point, although you gain nothing by drawing further attention to your behavior, you should ask your coworker in person, not through text or email. I know I already apologized about my behavior with your ex, but are you sure you're okay? After that, let it lie.
Thanks, Don. Well, it's 11:40, time for a little business and markets news. Here's a tiny article. Walmart says it will begin giving hiring preference to military spouses. Walmart announced Monday the start of the Military Spouse Career Connection, an effort to recruit and hire military spouses. The initiative complements an effort it launched in 2013 to hire 250,000 military veterans by 2020. It is on track to pass next year. The Bentonville, Arkansas-based retailer already offered military spouses and veterans the ability to transfer from one Walmart or Sam's Club location to another when a spouse is transferred because of the military. All candidates must meet the standard hiring criteria.
Well, Pabst Brewing Company and Miller's Coors are going to trial, with hipster favorite Pabst contending that Miller Coors wants to put it out of business by ending a long-standing partnership through which it brews Pabst beers. Stakes for Pabst, whose lawyers argue that the company's very existence relies on the partnership with Chicago-based Miller Coors, which produces, packages, and ships nearly all of its products, which include Pabst Blue Ribbon, Old Milwaukee, Natty Boh, and Lone Star. Miller Coors, meanwhile, says it's not obligated to continue brewing for Pabst and that Pabst doesn't want to pay enough to justify doing so. The trial in Milwaukee County Circuit Court began Monday and is scheduled through November 30. Pabst attorneys have said in court documents and hearings that Miller Coors LLC is lying about its brewing capacity, to break away from Pabst and capture its share of the cheap beer market by disrupting Pabst's ability to compete. At a March hearing in which Miller Coors tried to have the lawsuit dismissed, Pabst attorney Adam Paris said stunning documents obtained from Miller Coors show that it went as far as hiring a consultant to figure out ways to get rid of us. Miller Coors has called that a mischaracterization of the consultant's work.
And a broad sell-off in technology companies pulled U.S. stocks sharply lower Monday, knocking more than 600 points off the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Apple, Amazon, Goldman Sachs, and other big names fell. Banks and consumer-focused companies and communication stocks also took heavy losses. Crude oil prices fell, erasing early gains. Tech is definitely weighing on the market, said Lindsay Bell, investment strategist at CFRA. Apple tumbled 5% to $194.17 after Wells Fargo analysts said the iPhone maker is the unnamed customer that optical communications company Lumentum Holdings said was significantly reducing orders. Shares in Lumentum plunged 33% to $37.50. Amazon gave up 4.4% to $1,636.85. Banks and other financial companies also took heavy losses. Goldman Sachs slid 7.5% to $206.05. Expectations are really that the deregulation process that has benefited banks up to this point is going to be slowed down with the Democrats in charge, Bell said. While the market has typically thrived in periods of divided government, investors continue to grapple with uncertainty over the U.S.-China trade dispute and the potential impact of increased oversight of corporate America by Democrats who will be taking over leadership in the House of Representatives in January.
44 minutes after the hour, and before we move on to sports, we want to remind everyone that WellCare of Nebraska is proud to bring you today's reading of the Omaha World Herald and Lincoln Journal-Star. For more about WellCare, call today at 1-888-255-2605 or visit www.wellcare.com/Nebraska. Now, on to sports. Well, this season, the Nebraska volleyball team has a few players that have been up and down with their performances from one match to the next. And that's to be expected when you have 7 freshmen and sophomores playing a lot. But the Huskers can almost always count on senior outside hitter Michaela Fecke having a good and often great match. Now, into the final 2 weeks of the season, Fecke and senior libero Kenzie Maloney have helped lead the Huskers to 20-6 record and number 6 national ranking. Nebraska's next match is Friday the 12th at 12th ranked Purdue. Even on the plays when the Huskers are out of system and everybody in the gym knows the ball is getting set to Fecke, she still finds a way to produce. She's just a warrior, and I think she thinks she can take over the match when we need it, Nebraska coach John Cook said on Monday. I'm seeing her like when we need an ace, she really hits a tough serve. When we need a big kill, she's been able to kill it. Big block. She's big time. Over the last 3 matches in wins against Rutgers, Iowa, and Michigan, Fecke has 46 kills. She has just 4 hitting errors on 96 attempts in those matches for a .437 hitting percentage. For the Big Ten season, Michaela ranks in the top 15 in the league in kills per set, hitting percentage, and ace serves. Michaela's 3.71 kills per set is up from 3.53 last year. And probably most underappreciated is Fecke leads the team in ace serves 36, and is third in digs at 263. I think she's playing at player of the year level, said Cook, referring to both the Big Ten and national level. Her stats are up from last year. For Fecky to be a contender for the National Player of the Year, Nebraska would probably have to advance to the NCAA Final Four. I'll put her up against anybody, Cook said. Last week, Fecky became the 8th Husker all-time to surpass 1,500 career kills. She ranks 7th in program history with 1,534, with a chance to still move into the top 4. Nebraska has some young hitters on the team, and Lexi Sun, Jazz Sweet, and others, and Cook said that they can learn from watching Fecky. After you hit out or get blocked, you can't change your mindset, Cook said. It's like a baseball average. If you hit 300, you're all world. So that means you're failing 7 out of 10 swings. It's just a mindset of nothing bothers you, Cook said. You're around Michaela, nothing bothers her. She's about as even keel as you can get. That's what we're trying to get Lexi and Jazz to be like.
Thanks, Don. From Lincoln, Mick Stoltenberg didn't realize the cold number attached to his remaining time as a Husker until Scott Frost brought it up during a team meeting Monday. 11 days. In moments like those, the senior can see his college career flash before his mind's eye. Like most of his classmates, he was a Bo Pelini recruit who rose through the ranks under Mike Riley. Now, as Nebraska closes out a down-and-up first season under Frost, excuse the Gretna native if he takes a beat Saturday to soak in a bittersweet moment or two before his final home game. We get a big opportunity this weekend, the defensive lineman said. It is the last time we get to play this stadium. As emotional as the 11 a.m. contest will be for 19 Nebraska seniors, none have been more physically, mentally, and vocally invested in the day-by-day process than the 3 in-state co-captains, Stoltenberg and former Lincoln Southeast teammates Gerald Foster and Luke Gifford. All overcame serious injuries during their careers. All cycled through position coaches over the years. This season, all made sure the Frost era began with the full backing of Nebraska's senior class. We took it upon ourselves to not be the problem, said Foster, the left guard who had also been part of the previous coaching transition at Nebraska. We took it upon ourselves to be the solution and really to push forward. Their impacts are obvious at times. The bass voice of Stoltenberg employing teammates to practice well as he runs up and down a drill line during warm-ups. Foster setting an emotional tone, whether that's making jokes or speaking to reporters after a loss when no one else wants to. The linebacker Gifford inspiring others as he worked back from a hip injury that kept him out for most of the offseason. When Frost and his staff arrived, they floated the idea of no permanent captains in their first year, but players chose the lifelong Nebraskans, along with New Orleans native and record-breaking receiver Stanley Morgan, to represent the team all season. They grew up watching Husker football, senior defensive lineman Peyton Newell said. You couldn't ask for a better core group of leaders. Nebraska is the only team they've followed. The captains wanted to be more involved. Even as Stoltenberg missed multiple games rehabbing from a procedure on his knee, he checked in with teammates about their classes and other responsibilities. He wanted to know about any player indiscretions before the coaches did. Any concerns the Huskers had went through their captains and, if necessary, to the staff. Junior cornerback Lamar Jackson said the senior leaders busted up cliques that might have formed last season and gave us no choice but to bond, to be together. Senior center Tanner Farmer said they lead by example. It's not easy to come here and push a group of guys without a winning season to keep practicing hard and keep developing and getting better, Morgan said. But these captains have done a great job of doing that. Said freshman quarterback Adrian Martinez, I want them to be known that they laid the foundation for what we are about to become. Frost said he couldn't help but be impressed by Stoltenberg's speech to the team following Saturday's win over Illinois that challenged NU to finish the season strong with wins over Michigan State and Iowa. It's a good sign, the coach added, when the seniors are jealous of the younger players who get to stay in the program whose culture they helped create. Obviously, we still have some work to do this season, but I know this thing's going up, Stoltenberg said. I'm going to be so proud of these guys when it's a year or two from now, and they're winning tons of games and having a lot of success here.
Well, Nebraska wide receiver Stanley Morgan could have made the jump to the NFL after last season. He was that level of player in 2017. Monday, as Morgan reflected on his Husker career during the team's weekly media luncheon, he sounded genuinely pleased with his decision to return to school for his senior year. This season is everything to me, he said, as Nebraska, 3-7, 2-5 in the Big Ten, prepares for its final home game of 2018 against Michigan State, who's 6-4 and 4-3, at 11 a.m. Saturday. I mean, it's not the best season ever, but this is great. These guys moving into a direction that I've been wanting, it's amazing to me. Just to come back and help these guys to get going in the right direction and help them set that base for Nebraska in the future, it's good. It's real good. I like it. Morgan's obviously a gigantic part of it, a consistently explosive weapon in an offense that has risen to 13th nationally in average yards per game at 482.6. The 6'1", 200-pound Louisiana native leads the team with 856 receiving yards, only 144 short of the first 1,000-yard receiving season in school history. He set the school's single-season receiving yardage in record in 2017 with 986. With 2 games remaining, Nebraska closes the season November 23rd at Iowa. Morgan is poised to take over the top spots of 3 major NU career categories. With 178 receptions in 3+ seasons, he needs only 4 to pass Kenny Bell as the all-time leader. In addition, Morgan has 2,599 receiving yards, just 91 from surpassing Bell's record of 2,689. What's more, Morgan has 22 touchdown catches, 4 from passing Johnny Rodgers' all-time mark. Before Saturday's 54-35 home win against Illinois, Morgan had a chance encounter with Bell. He told me to get it. He told me to go get the record. I respect that. That shows the bond and brotherhood we have with each other. Morgan seemingly has that sort of bond with sophomore receiver J.D. Spielman, who already ranks 8th on Nebraska's career chart with 121 receptions and 7th with 1,648 yards. Morgan is a relentless competitor. He said he had to be that way at St. Augustine High in New Orleans, where he blocked for future LSU and NFL star Leonard Fournette. He played with other great players at St. Augustine, guys who helped instill the work ethic you see from Morgan to this day. However, to keep going and give it my all, that's something I was born with, Morgan added. He recounted a conversation with a Nebraska fan over the weekend. The fan told Morgan that even amid all the losing early in the season, he could still see progress in the program under a first-year coaching staff. Morgan agreed. He sees growth in the offense and program in general. He finds it easy to follow the new coaching staff. That staff has created a family bond in the program, Morgan said. Now, Morgan prepares for his final go-around at Memorial Stadium. It means everything to me, he said. This is one of my bases for my future. It's good.
Thanks, Don. Here's a story about Creighton soccer. Johnny Torres was there on the night 4 years ago that Creighton's senior midfielder first arrived in Omaha. Torres picked up Joel Ridstrand at the airport and gave him a quick driving tour of the city. They talked about the CU campus and the program. Torres had the newcomer from Sweden thinking a bit and laughing some and mostly just feeling at ease. The bond only grew after that, and Ridstrand's certain that most of his teammates could share a similar story about the connection they formed with Torres, whose personable nature and caring spirit resonate with players. So even though Ridstrand's Creighton career has ended, he won't get to experience CU's next chapter firsthand, he's pretty sure he knows what future Jays players can expect from a coach like Torres. He's very interactive, making sure you're all right, Ridstrand said, but if you're doing something wrong, he'll tell you straight up. He doesn't hold back, which brings another dimension into the relationship. If you can both praise and also tell someone they're doing something wrong, I think that's a good attribute to have. Torres, a former Blue Jay star and a 12-year assistant, was named Creighton's coach Monday. He replaces Elmar Bolovich, who resigned Monday after 8 seasons. Bolovich has accepted a job as the executive director of Armada Youth FC in Jacksonville, Florida. Bolovich, the all-time winningest coach at North Carolina, led the Creighton program to 2 College Cups and 4 regular season league championships. It's a leadership change that was announced just a few hours after the Jays learned they'd missed the NCAA tournament for the 2nd straight year. Creighton said Creighton won the Big East regular season crown and spent most of the 2018 campaign ranked in the coaches' top 25, but its resume lacked quality wins and its 2-2-2 finish proved costly. Creighton participated in 24 of 25 NCAA tournaments from 1992 to 2016. Torres said in a statement that Monday was an emotional day. I'm sad to see him go, and I was lucky to be able to learn from such a tremendous man, Torres said. With that being said, I'm very excited and happy for the opportunity to be at the forefront of one of the best programs in the country, and a special one in that it's my alma mater. Torres earned National Player of the Year honors in 1996 and 97, ending his Creighton career as the Missouri Valley Conference's leader in scoring and assists. After returning to Creighton's campus and joining the staff in 2007, Torres was named the National Assistant Coach of the Year in 2012. He received Regional Assistant Coach of the Year awards in 2011, 2012, and 2015. Athletic Director Bruce Rasmussen said in a statement that Torres had earned this promotion. Ross Powell, maybe Pauli, P-A-U-L-E, the 4-year women's soccer coach, would agree. He and Torres were teammates on the Jays' first College Cup team in 1996. He watched Torres grow. He's such a great fit for it, and he deserves it, he said. He puts all of his efforts in making a difference. He's going to build character and really help set up these boys for success in life. Torres' first on-field challenge will be trying to replace the Big East Offensive Player of the Year, Sven Koenig, and the league's Midfielder of the Year, Ridstrand. 4 other seniors, including captain and second-team all-conference defender Mitch LeGros, have also departed. Plus, Creighton's coaches were just recognized as the Big East top staff after the 2018 regular season run. But Bolovich said in a statement that it's the right time for him to move on. Torres will take charge now. He's likely to make an impact on the guys right away, according to Ridstrand. I'd be discussing games with him, and he's saying he hasn't been able to sleep the last 2 nights after a loss, Ridstrand said. He's very passionate, both as a coach and as a human being. I've learned a tremendous amount from him.
Thanks, Deb. Well, Eli Manning found Sterling Shepard in the end zone with less than 1 minute to play to give the New York Giants a 27-23 victory over the San Francisco 49ers on Monday night in California. It was Manning's 3rd of the day, with 2 others going to Odell Beckham Jr. The win gave the Giants just their 2nd victory of the season. Meanwhile, San Francisco, led by quarterback Nick Mullins, dropped to 2-8 on the season. Well, it's 12 o'clock. That means our time is up. So for Don Van
And Deb Beatty.
So long, everyone. Have a good week.
Thank you very much, Don Van and Deb Beatty, for doing another spectacular job reading the Lincoln Journal-Star and Omaha World Herald for us today.
What?
You're tuned
I
to
didn't
Radio
know
Talk
until now
Network in Omaha, Nebraska. We've been proudly serving our blind and visually
I
impaired
tried to slow that down, but I.
Radio Talking Book.
I had something ready.
Good. Thank goodness. Well, I still have yesterday's paper. I'll go read your daughter's.
It's time for the Nebraska Life Hour, followed by the bookshelf.
She gets fired up.
Great programming coming up on Radio Talking Book. We hope you'll stay tuned.
Unlike her father.
Oh, no, no.
Lots of programming
I had started
ready
today
for
last
you on
night.
Radio Talking
I
Book.
said, I'm going to need to hear from you every day
And
now that you're on fire out there. I mean, she can see the fire from work.
Really? Man, I don't know what they could do out there.
She and I just had lunch at Malibu when I was out there.
Well, my other daughter was out in California last week, and she was at Thousand Oaks
Yeah.
and Malibu. You know, I mean, not. I think she went to dinner or somewhere.
It's just, I don't know. I mean, all those lives lost and all those lives to be rebuilt. And think of the insurance companies, among other people. I mean, those are devastating losses.
Well, what's gonna do the insurance cost?
Well, yeah.
It'll probably impact us.
Well, sure. Wait, great fillers just lying here.
Oh, my great fillers. Oh, I can't forget that. Yeah.
It's a new book. I mean, I haven't seen you bring that one before.
Well, yeah. I bring that one in, I've got a smaller one. It's got a shorter story. It's shorter.
Stories, I guess. Betty asked me about the coffee and I said, it's awful. I said, what we really need is a Keurig. She said, well, we have one in the back.
Oh, coffee. I heard coffee.
Betty asked me how this was and I said,
Is it awful? Is it?
And I'm not the only one who said so. And so.
Well, that's good to know.
I said, we need a
I think I have 114 of them.
Oh, dear.
Well, Betty thought it was better than the coffee pot.
It is better than the coffee pot in that you don't have to throw away on coffee.
Right.
But I said, we need a Keurig, but they cost a lot. She
They
said,
are.
we have one in the kitchen.
I don't think it's a real Keurig.
Oh,
Maybe you want to look at it?
well, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a Keurig at home.
I don't either. It's too expensive.
You know.
Sorry,
But if it,
I'm a tight ass.
if it provides a single cup of coffee,
Well, the problem is, I think people that wanted all the foo-foo stuff. Maybe the coffee's cheap. I don't know, and they do have off brands.
sure.
Keurig.
I learned from my in-laws in California have Keurig. We tried to put a different kind of a thing in there and it won't play.
Right.
You have to have a Keurig.
But they have.
A little thing that you
Universal
fill.
ones. You can put it in.
Yeah, but then have you ever tried to clean out one of those little things?
No, I haven't.
Well, it's not any fun.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's really hard. And then you're gonna end up, you have to run water through it and then you got coffee grounds in the sink. I mean, it's a big mess.
Yeah. That's.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I thought, I kind of
I
don't
know they're
like,
bad for the environment.
that's it. I kind of don't like all
Well,
that
that's the other.
plastic.
That's the other thing.
They said there's so many.
Yeah, it's like water
Yeah.
bottles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, we've all gone to our own bottle and
Yeah.
so.
Now, I put my plastics, I don't have any Keurig cups, but my other plastic, in the orange bag and.
I have the orange bag.
And then they burn it for energy.
Yeah.
And
I
you can that
do
with
have
those.
the orange and I pay extra. It costs me about $5 an extra a month extra to recycle. But I've been recycling since the 70s in Audubon, Iowa. So when I moved here, it was like I could not do it. I've been recycling for too many years.
Just throw it all together anyway.
Those
guys.
that's what's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and wrong. But anyway,
But a lot of the recycling is not improved. That it might be better to use. Because it's cheaper, and, landfills, if they're managed right, there's no problems.
it's expensive. Recycling is expensive.
It is.
Green stuff is expensive.
Yeah.
You're gonna pay more for the Prius. You're gonna pay more
Yeah.
for wind energy. It's just a fact.
But it's
But-
dropping.
It will the more it's used. Exactly.
Yep.
May I look at this a minute?
Help yourself.
I heard of that.
Well,
This
next
week-
week.
See you next week.
Thank you, Dawn.
That's right.
This,
Thanksgiving's next week, right?
yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah, and we're closed next week. On Thursday, just on Thursday.
Oh,
We should,
so-
sign it.
See you later.
Dawn, take care.
Did you get it?
I told somebody, my poetry book has been a bunch of my poetry I couldn't find. But when we had it in the basement like 3 years ago, Bill put his bookcase in front of mine to get it out of the way. He hasn't moved it ever since, and I haven't looked. And then I saw peeking out, my collection of Carl Sandburg, and I thought, oh, look, you're back there, trying. The bookcase, that was a bad thing to do with my backwards. But anyway, that was in there. And I have so much trouble fitting in, I don't want to have too much time left and I don't want to read past the end. And I thought, you know what? If I have a little haiku, I have, 20, 30 seconds. I read 2 today and the one of them that I chose.
That's why I was just looking, because I just opened a fall.
Oh, yeah.
That's incredible. I think I remember in elementary school having to write.
Oh, yeah,
like,
17 syllables and all that stuff.
Yeah.
This is the one I ended with.
All the largest trees with those forests and trunks blackened with char. Can't take her scrubs.
It's very hard to choose poetry that does not make a visual reference. But I thought this one reminded us of the fire. But I listen for sounds and tastes and smells, you know.
Exactly, and it's so good for the blind.
Yeah. Oh, and the other one I read was.
This I can understand. A lot of some of the poetry, I just don't get it.
I haven't listened to it.
I know.
Or to read it out loud
I'm
yourself.
too impulsive and easily distracted.
Oh,
I have to have that last bag of cheese.
I think it should.
Yeah.
Here. I also read this one.
A white tapping cane revealing a world of colors to passersby. Broken glass.
I don't keep going, it just stops right there.
Oh, that's it?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
There are only 17 syllables.
oh, see, I thought one page was.
No.
I forgot.
It's just this.
Oh.
And see, that's so true. If you have to have a white cane, you think you're making a difference in the lives of seeing people because all of a sudden they value their sight more.
I asked Ryan this the other day. Last Friday, I picked him up from work because the bus never came. He stood out there for 20 minutes in that mess. He had habits quite frequently. He missed I think it was the same day. They never came to pick him up either. But anyway, we were driving to work, and I love the snow, and so I asked him. I said, and he can describe things for me that I can't put into words. And I said on October 14th, when we had that fabulous snow, I said I was home in my jammies all day, never left the house, loved it. Looked out the window, it was just fabulous for me because I don't hardly ever do that. And I said, do you hear the difference? I said, when it snows and it's so quiet. And he goes, yes, because everything is awful. And I'm going, that's it. I don't really feel stupid, but it's like he does open a world to me.
Right.
And I especially appreciate it because my son that's blind, who doesn't talk to me hardly about anything, but so I feel like through Ryan I have a better understanding of things for
What
him.
it's like, yeah.
So
I'm gonna just run to the bathroom before I keep going.
sounds good. Okay, I'm gonna take these cheeses and nobody else does.
That's right.
I love Cheez-Its. I wish I could have some, but
Dash, I'm eating them.
I took them both, Chief. I took one pumpkin and one apple. 6-inch pumpkin and a 6-inch. Split the difference. I don't care.
Pie?
Yes.
Oh,
6-inch. Little ones.
yeah. Where do you get them?
Ivy, I'm an online grocery order.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Nothing wrong with that. You can probably eat all weekend on it.
Well, yeah, between the two of them, I'll have
Yeah.
big, like half of it for Thanksgiving, maybe.
Sure.
6 inches, pretty. Not that big.
Well, I will. I have a turkey in the freezer, so when I fix it, I'll bring you some. It won't be next week, probably, but because I think my husband works all weekend, Wednesday, Friday, and the weekend. Both of us are off there.
Yeah, that's very nice.
And
I'm not a big fan of turkey.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
Ham and turkey. I was never any fun at Easter or
That's
Thanksgiving
what you're
dinners
saying.
because I don't like ham or turkey.
Yeah.
My dad learned to make, he made fried pheasant that was just incredible. Just.
My mom used to cook pheasant. My dad would go pheasant hunting. And of course, we'd have to eat around BBs, shot.
Yep.
Got shot.
I've come across more than one BB and a pheasant. Yeah.
I told you my husband broke a tooth off. Didn't I?
No. That's a hell of a story, though.
No, it isn't, because it's gonna cost us probably $1,000 or more.
Oh, wait, did this happen recently?
Yeah, Sunday at work.
Oh, no, I haven't heard about this.
Yeah, and it's in the front on the bottom. He thinks it was a crown. I said, I don't remember you having a crown on the front. He goes, yeah, I did. He goes to the dentist tomorrow. He was really bummed. He doesn't express that much. He goes, yeah, I just got over shingles and now I broke a tooth.
Yeah.
Once I did. That's not, giving myself kudos for being nice.
You weren't too mean to get sick, I'm about to say.
Yeah, oh my God, I am.
Laughing about kicking him when he's down.
Well, not that I would kick it, but I was sympathetic, so. There you go, looks like we need more glasses. My volunteer coordinator.
I'm gonna get my coat from behind you, beyond you.
I'm busy drinking, so I won't.
I see. You're safe again.
Myself, I think of Sam's, what it looks like we're about cups. Oh, there's some more. Huh? There you go.
Yes, have one for me, please.
Oh, you can't have one?
I'm on a diet right now.
There should be two.
Well, Becca's not on a diet, but she's on this eating program. And so it's been easier for me to avoid certain things then because of that. So,
Of course, you would fall down on the table, your keys.
here.
Okay, see you next week.
See you next week.
Have a good week, Deb.
You too.
How's your buddy doing?
Well, today, go to the urologist and he will have a cystoscopy to see why there was something. They gave him blood thinners, when he fell,
Yeah.
then there was a lot of bleeding. And so they're checking the inside of the bladder. Saying, well, it could be bladder cancer. Well, that's not a good thing.
You shouldn't say that.
I
You
think
should
so.
say-
Both doctors said that. Made me worried.
Well, they shouldn't do that. They should say, let's run this test and see what we can see. It's probably irritated. Hello, the drug is irritating. Why would they ever say the absolute worst case thing?
I don't know. I asked the doctor then, and we picked this doctor from the list because he did my brother's, he was the one who removed my brother's kidney when they found the tumor in it.
Uh-huh.
And he liked him a lot. He's very straightforward, capable, and so forth.
Yeah.
But anyway, he said, you have any questions? He asked Bill first, and he did. I said, yeah, and I said, is it possible that this drug caused the bleeding all by itself, that there's nothing wrong with that this drug is in the system? And he said, no.
Oh.
He said, however, it could be there was a small vein that was irritated and broke. It might be something quite minor, but probably not. I mean, they were really painting a bad picture.
When my folks were both going through cancer, but this was back in the 90s, Dad 94, Mom in 98, Dad first time in 70. They were not forthcoming. And I remember my mom, they did a biopsy. One of the two, I can't remember. We were here in Omaha. And both my sisters and I were there. The surgeon came out and it was like pulling teeth to get the answer out of them. Well, my one sister is a veterinarian. My other sister managed a medical clinic for 17 oncologists and doctors. And finally, they just said, listen,
Tell us.
tell us, we want to know.
Yeah.
Give us a scoop.
Yeah.
They both lived far away, blah, blah, blah. And finally he said, well, it's not good. So, fine, tell us.
I think the whole philosophy has changed.
I will also say, I firmly believe this from going through this with a number of family and friends, that I think the doctors feel out the patient and the patient's family. What do they want?
Yes.
Do they want the carrot and the hope to infinity? Or like us, we want to know the bottom line.
Right.
They gave my mom 1 to 3 months to live. She lived 9. My dad had cancer twice, 15 years apart. Second time he lived 4 months. They were 63 and 65.
Ooh.
I just turned 63. So.
It's a different time.
It is a different time.
And while genetics play a part, they're not the only part.
No, both my folks smoked. My mom's was lung cancer. My dad's was cancer in her chest cavity.
Oh.
Two different times. They thought it was pancreas or liver. They never did find a source. But again, first time was 79.
Yeah.
He had 3 different teams of doctors come in, and they each had a different part of this. One was, you have 10 days to go home and get your affairs in order. I was the oldest. I was 19.
Oh.
Because I didn't know I was older than that.
Right.
That was when I had a heart attack. I was 19. I was in my early 20s and just had my 3rd kid, and the rest of the
kids were on everything. It was in 79, I still had a brother in high school.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah. What?
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I gotta let Deb go.
So your interview with Brian after trimming off the lead time and end
I
time,
was gonna tell you,
30,
edit that,
it's 34:51.
edit it. There was some bullshit stuff in the beginning. Just cut some of that out.
Well, I mean, after, if you're talking about before the interview even started, I cut that out and I cut the end off, and it's still 34 minutes and 51.
All right, well, didn't we just do some chit chatting?
I'll listen to it. If you're giving me permission to edit it,
Yes.
to get it down to 30, we're gonna need to take about 5 minutes out.
Well, see, how do you, see if you can, because I know we kind of went off on tangents kind of in the beginning, and I'm fine with that. Yeah,
All right,
fine.
I'll give it a look.
Yeah, give it a
Because I was gonna
look,
say,
see, and
you
see
gotta
what you
keep-
think.
You gotta keep, whoever the other person is down to 25, but if you want them up closer to 30.
Well, it doesn't matter to me. You listen and see what you think.
Okay,
I'm okay with whatever you decide.
who's the other person?
Tomorrow or when?
Friday, or is it, we're recording it tomorrow, right?
We're recording it, I think it's tomorrow or Thursday. Tomorrow.
Oh, wait, this isn't for this Friday, this is
Yes,
for.
it is. Brian is for this Friday, and this gal is for this Friday, I think. It's Michelle Hunt with Chariots for Hope.
Okay,
And I think they're oh wait, but we have a volunteer coordinator. Do we have a volunteer?
yes, oh, that's right, yeah. We were gonna put Brian in the following Friday, the day after.
You're right. My bad. Yes. All right, I do have it written down.